Why is it reasonable to conclude that Jesus Christ rose from death? First, as we started a few of these videos, it's rational and reasonable to conclude that he did in fact die. Covered the swoon theory in the last video, the suggestion that Jesus did not die on his cross, but that he went into something like a coma. He fainted because of the injuries that he had received, and we concluded that is simply not viable. Romans knew what they were doing, crucifying people. Jesus was stabbed in the side by a spear, and pericardial fluid gushed forth from his wound. You cannot live when your pericardial sac has been ruptured. On a more theological suggestion about whether or not Jesus did in fact die, Islam would say, no, Jesus did not die on his cross. Either he was not in fact crucified, or he was delivered from his cross before his death. Two suggestions get made around that. One is that, yes, okay, Jesus himself went onto his cross, but God translated him to heaven before he could die. This is a minority understanding within Islam. The common understanding is that instead Jesus had a body double, essentially, placed on the cross in his place. The most common suggestion for who that was that it was Judas, the disciple who betrayed him to his captors. Now, obviously, both of the claims being made here are religious in nature. The Christian who's going to say, no, Jesus died, and the Muslim who's going to say, no, Jesus didn't die, someone else died in his place. These are both religious claims, and so we should look at other factors as we evaluate these claims than simply asking, what does each of them want? Because each of them ultimately wants you to follow their faith. Well, the Islamic interpretation of what happened at Jesus' cross came about nearly a millennium later. Islam did not come around until nearly a millennium after the life and death of Jesus. On the other hand, within a couple of decades after Jesus' death, we have written records, i.e. the New Testament texts, of what Christians had been saying from the very get-go, from the day that he died. Jesus was the one who was on his cross. Jesus died on that cross. It was not someone else. His mother knew him hanging up there on his cross. His friends knew him hanging there on his cross. A man with whom he had had extended conversations privately, a man named Nicodemus, is one of the people who takes his body off the cross and buries him. These people would have known who it was that was dying on that cross, whose body it was that they were dealing with. Furthermore, Jesus himself says that his job, throughout the Gospels, he says that his job, the reason that he came to earth, was to die. As he says, to give his life as a ransom for many. There's good reason to believe that Jesus himself was the one who died on the cross. Why is it reasonable to conclude that on the third day afterward, then he rose? We'll talk about that in another video. Thanks for watching.